There are people who are invisible and who are made to be invisible, who are forced to be invisible. And I think the greatest form of social justice is to acknowledge them and the power that we have as writers. It doesn't have to be a book as pressing as like, look, there's an issue and we're gonna tackle an issue. Sometimes it's just writing a character that hasn't been written. If I walk into a white establishment, right, the cop in the corner is gonna know his Spidey signal is going off for me more than it goes off for anybody, and that's something that we all know. It's always been that way. It's not a new thing. But in the meantime, I think that when it comes to like invisibility, I don't think like here's a prime example. A prime example is Black people are in the news all the time. Black people are in books, never. Or why aren't there any Black people in Harry Potter, right? One of the biggest books in history that shifted the entire literary industry, right? The only reason I have a career as fruitful as I do is because of J.K. Rowling turning it into a bigger thing, right? And there are no characters of color. Like we just don't exist in Hogwarts.
There was that one Asian.
There was the one Asian one. There is the Asian girl. Shout out to the Asian girl. But I think about all those things, and even when I'm working, like when I think about what I'm gonna write next, right? I'm always like, yo, where do we not exist? And let me like, all right? I'll make us fly. I mean, I work every day on things, right? I typically do about 6 hours a day of writing. I have multiple projects happening at the same time. So whether it's I'm writing a new novel, I'm editing a novel that for the publishing company that's due, I'm writing some sort of essay or review or something like that, a blog for somebody.
How good are you at deadlines?
I don't. They never have to even give me deadlines because of this, right? There's a famous quote by W.H. Auden, famous poet, one of the dead white guys, and he said that to discipline your passion is to discipline your time, right? And so his theory was if you do the same things every single day, specifically when it comes to like your art or like doing the creative thing, that the brain will know what to do when that time comes every single day. Between the 80s, 1980 and 1999, besides Walter Dean Myers, for young people, I mean, there's a gap, right? There's like a 20-year gap, right? So if you're a Black kid in this country, especially if you were a poor Black kid in this country, and you were living in a poor Black environment, where the three biggest sort of like movements, so to speak, in your community was, crack cocaine, HIV, and hip hop music. And none of those things exist in literature at all during my entire childhood. None of it exists in any childhood literature that I could ever find. My life wasn't mirrored. Like to read about Scout, right? To read To Kill a Mockingbird, it's brilliant, right? But Scout wasn't me. Signed some books. So my newest book, which I co-wrote with a buddy of mine, Brendan Kiley, called All American Boys, which is, it's one of these books. It's like it's a dual POV book about police brutality and white privilege, right? Written for teenagers.
How did your collaboration come about?
Brendan and I?
Yeah.
Brendan came to me and said, I want to write a book about police. We had been talking about police brutality a lot over the course of like a year or so, since Trayvon Martin. And I had been really angry. We were at a bar, right after Trayvon Martin, we were at a bar, and I had like lost it. Like I just like lost my whole shit. And we talked about it then, and then a couple months later, something else had happened, and we talked about that, and then Michael Brown happened, and that was a thing. And then Brendan's like, hey man, we should write a book about it. And I hadn't thought to write about it at all. Because I live in this body, and so I don't intellectualize my life as a Black person in America. Mm-hmm. I don't think about it that way because I live in it every day, and this has always been my existence. And so when he came to me with the idea, I was like, oh. And then we had like an honest conversation. I was like, look, dude, I'll do this with you. We can do this thing together, but we've got to do it, and we've got to do it even if they don't publish it.
Yeah, good.
And so we did it under wraps. We wrote the whole book without our agents or editors knowing. No one knew except for his wife.
Wow.
Yeah. no matter where I am in the country, 9 times out of 10, there are students who are so surprised because they didn't think that any writers could look like them, right? Like, oh, he's got crazy, hair, and he's got tattoos, and he wears sneakers, and he's got on jeans, and they can't understand how it could be possible that a guy that looks like me can do this, right? Can do something other than play basketball or be a musician or a rapper, right? All of those things, which I actually think are awesome, right? That as much as you practice basketball, and as much as you practice freestyling, practice like telling yourself your own truth, because sometimes it's that truth that is your golden ticket. Your story in and of itself is worth a gazillion dollars. So yeah, it's cool. I've written 11 books, and they're all coming out, and hopefully by the time the 11th one hits, I won't have to write so much. I love writing and I love storytelling, but I want to get to a point where I'm not afraid of the door being closed. There are 2 books on the shelf, 3 books on the shelves, and a book coming out in a couple of weeks. But there are 11 books in the can because of the fear that if I didn't, the dream would be over. And I want to get to a place where I feel secure in my career, where I really feel like, I write a book once every couple of years. I write a really good book, be comfortable and respected by my peers, and that there are a lot of little black and brown kids who become adults and who've had a life with a relationship with literature because of the springboard of Jason Reynolds novels.